Okay, so welcome to the summer term meeting of the Abingdon Partnership of Schools Science Coordinators Group. This was meant to be a session on outdoor learning, which we were hoping would actually take place at the Earth Trust's new centre down at Long Whittenham, but unfortunately, obviously, other things have intervened. However, in some ways, I think we've managed to put together an excellent programme for this evening, possibly better than it would have been if we'd been meeting in my lab in the Young Science Centre, because we have got people from further afield. We've got people like Sylvia joining us from Stockport, from Royal Meteorological Society, as well as a number of local organisations. Lucy from the Sumatran Orangutan Society, which is only in Lombard Street in Abingdon, which is amazing. And we've got Ian, who's going to tell us all about the exciting developments at the Earth Trust and about his new role and how they're interested in engaging local schools and offering opportunities on environmental education. And then Sylvia is going to tell us a little bit about what the Royal Meteorological Society offers in the way of resources on climate change and weather. And then we have our very own local primary school teacher and science and environment coordinator, Holly Irving, who's going to give us a little tour of their amazing outdoor spaces at Caldecott Primary School. So I think what I'll do is I'll get on quite quickly. I'm going to try to remind the speakers to stick to the 10 minutes if you can. And then we've got some little buffer zones for questions if people want to ask questions, but I might have to use that buffer zone to move on if time gets short. If you have got any questions, then either put them in the chat or email them to me and I'll pass them on to the speakers. So, Ian, are you ready to start?
I am, yeah.
Okay. So hopefully, screen sharing is set up and you should be able to share your screen if you wish or speak to us. So, over to Ian from the Earth Trust.
Thank you. So hopefully this should work. Shout when someone can see it.
Yep, we can see it.
Excellent, thanks. So I'm going to start with a very brief caveat, which is that I've only been at the Earth Trust for 4 weeks. I had the curious situation of finishing one job and starting another right in the middle of lockdown. So I've never been to the Earth Trust and I've never met anyone from the Earth Trust other than my boss. So with that little caveat in mind, and the staff that would have been delivering this presentation are all furloughed. So it's coming from a curious place, but we'll go with it. So the Earth Trust, for those that don't know, we are a charity based at Little Whittenham, and essentially, in a nutshell, we have nearly 1,300 acres of green spaces that we either own or manage, including an SSSI, nature reserves, farmland, waterways, woodland, a whole remit of spaces, which are obviously incredibly rich and diverse, and we try to manage those in the best way possible for the health and prosperity of humans, nature, wildlife, and animals. So that's kind of who we are and what we do. And my role, which is a brand new role, is Director of Partnerships and Programmes. So essentially it's falling to me to look to the future of the Earth Trust about what it is that we deliver, how we deliver and do it, and who we do it in partnership with. So really exciting place for me to come into. So bear with me as I look at notes and guide us through this little presentation. So for those of you that do know, and I assume that quite a lot of you probably do know about us and what we have to offer, one of the areas that we work around and that we have to offer is our educational outreach programs. So for local schools predominantly, but also we have a footprint that reaches as far as London, Birmingham, Oxford, Reading, Swindon as well. So schools visit on quite a regular basis. We have over 5,000 school children visit us for these programs across the year, and we do that through really engaging programs, so through our Earth School program, but also events that go on throughout the calendar year as well that are a bit more ad hoc for people to engage with. So there's all kinds of really exciting stuff for schools to get involved with, and children of all ages, I should say, as well, primary through to secondary. So that's in brief what we do and what we have to offer. And one of the new bits that's really started to come to the fore as well, on the back of our green space, food and farming, environmental wildlife programs, is archaeology. So for those of you who are local and probably know as well, where we've been starting to do some digging for a capital project, we've unearthed some really fascinating archaeological finds, and our new piece of work that we're doing, which I'll talk about in a moment, also looks at that archaeological dig site and how that relates to how humans interact with the land and their environment as well. So not wanting to dwell too long, this is the exciting bit that you've all come for, is what we're building right now. So we're in the first phase of what we're calling the gateway. And essentially it's called the gateway because it's designed to provide a specific access point for people to find us and explore what we have to offer. So the Earth Lab, as you can see on the slide here, is just one part of that gateway programme. It's about a £6–7 million capital build project, which is already well underway, phase 1, and it's going to be a fully interactive space for visitors locally and up to 1 hour's drive away, and it will provide that access point for everyone to come and explore all of our spaces and everything we have to offer. Now you can see at the front of this slide here, there's a fabulous looking building with a green roof. That is the Earth Lab. It's not built yet. The first bits of building are starting to happen, but that will essentially be our real, really interactive space for learning and education outreach. It's going to be very tactile, it's going to be really immersive, and it will allow us to double our amount of learning spaces that we provide. So obviously it's not a matter of taking everybody outdoors and bringing them indoors. We're going to continue to do both, but this will provide us with essentially a live lab for loads of experimentation, exploration and immersive learning as well, which is quite exciting. Phase 2, so that was phase 1, is getting the Earth Lab up and running, so be pleased to hear that's the bit that we're absolutely throwing all of our efforts and energy into. Phase 2, you can see here, is broader and bigger, and you can see the roundhouses sort of towards us here in the foreground, and this is going to be building on the exploration that we found around Roman settlements on the land as we've been starting to excavate. So these roundhouses are going to have 3 different assets. One will be displaying some of the archaeological digs that we've come up with. One will be really interactive, digital facing the future about how we interact and teach. And the third one I've completely forgotten about, but I'm sure it'll be incredibly exciting. It's in my notes somewhere. So it's going to extend anyway our story of the land and how we interact and everything that we do there. And the final bit of phase 2, the building that you can see in the foreground on the right, is going to be our operational centre, but in the base of that is going to be a cafe, meeting space centre, and on the left you can see we're planning a large-scale kitchen garden that will enable us to do that real focus on farm to fork all the way through for food production, and use that as an educational resource as well. So just checking my time here. That's kind of what we've got lined up and planned, ready to go. But facing the future, the bit that we're really fascinated and interested in, and especially for me, and for those of you who are all based in schools, my background is 10 years working in and with schools on food in particular. So I worked at the Soil Association on the National Food for Life programme for 10 years. And what I'm really interested in is how we've got this amazing asset at the Earth Trust. We've got loads of ideas, loads of creativity and resource to throw at this project. But we really want to know from you as schools what format you would like things in, what more we can offer and provide you with in order to make this truly immersive and productive for you. Historically, at the Earth Trust, I know that a lot of what we've provided has been about getting outside and experiencing the outdoor learning, but it hasn't necessarily been as meticulously linked to the STEM curriculum, for example, or in formats or ways that enable you to take it back into the classroom and really work interactively and productively with that. And especially in light of what's going on right now and the kind of education system that we're likely to end up with from September onwards, where outdoor access, immersive learning, protecting the mental health and well-being of children and staff, I hasten to add, is going to be really, really important. And we think that we play a really vital role for that and will continue to do so, especially for our local schools. So we're really keen, and my survey that Jeremy's really kindly shared with you starts to ask some of those questions. So we'd really like to get your input on that so that we can make sure we are providing you with the best resources possible and doing that in partnership with you. And that, I think, pretty much takes me up to the 10 minutes, trying to keep really to time. And I know we've got a bit of time afterwards, is that right, Jeremy, for a few questions?
Yes, okay. So what I thought we'd do is have 2 talks at a time, and then we've got a little bit of buffer space, but you've been really good there and we're probably a little bit ahead. So that's great. And what I'll do for people that have just joined us, I'll put the SurveyMonkey link up again so that you can fill in Ian's survey for him if you haven't got it yet. Okay, so thank you very much, Ian. Now, I think that we're getting Lucy next from Sumatran Orangutan Society, if I'm correct. Is that right, Lucy?
It is, yeah.
Right, okay. So, hello, welcome, Lucy. And over to you.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Really nice to see you all and meet you virtually for now. As Jeremy said, I work for Sumatran Orangutan Society. We are a really small charity based in Abingdon. There are just 4 of us, currently 2 because half of the team has been furloughed. So really tiny, and that means we can't offer a huge amount of sort of visits to schools and things like that. You know, we're always very willing, and I particularly really like going to schools within the local area to give, you know, even if it's just a half-hour talk about orangutans, and that's something we can very much offer to people in the local area, and something that I was getting into doing more before lockdown. But they're in the sense of sort of, you know, not having that much staff availability to be able to do it all the time, we also have a schools pack which is downloadable from our website, and some of you may already have done it and even used it in your classes, and we're always really keen to get feedback on how those worksheets work, because we had them made for us some years back, and as far as we know they are still really useful and popular, but we you know, we aren't education experts ourselves, so it's sort of a bit of give and take. We love to hear feedback if anyone does use them and has any sort of areas for improvement they think that we use. Just to give a bit of background about Sumatran Orangutan Society, or SOS, to give it the sort of shorter, easier name. We're a UK charity, but we support the work of a couple of other NGOs who are based over in Sumatra. Sumatran orangutans are critically endangered. Their ecosystems are also endangered and filled with lots of threatened species. So I think that all that stuff ties in quite nicely with various parts of the curriculum, certainly at primary, and I imagine at some secondary levels as well. Among the things we do, the work we support is partly obvious things like rescuing orangutans from danger. We also do reforestation, so we have experts in botany and ecology who work over in Sumatra and turn barren land back into rainforest, and that's something really interesting as well for, well, I think for everyone, but I think kids really like learning about that stuff. The other thing that we do a lot of is working with people. Conservation is very much about people, not just about animals. And to that end, we actually built a school ourselves a couple of years back. So it opened in August 2018. It's currently got, I think, 36 pupils, so it's really small. But it was to fulfill a gap in education in North Sumatra, whereby the villages that it serves are so remote that a lot of children were ending primary school and then they couldn't physically get to a secondary school because they're so cut off from nearby towns, and it was just too expensive or too difficult to get there. So we built this tiny school, and it follows the curriculum, the Indonesian curriculum, but it also has a big focus on nature. And It's attached to a forest restoration site and a permaculture centre, and that means that the children are getting hands-on learning about ecology, about medicinal plants, about permaculture alongside their curriculum. And that's something we've been talking to more schools about recently, and we've also talked to Jeremy about, is the possibility of having some sort of links between the school that we fund and schools over here. So that could be Skype calls between the two schools, or maybe doing some similar worksheets together and comparing results. Or when it comes to, I know some schools in Oxfordshire have camera traps as part of the Abingdon Science Partnership, and so sharing images of, the tigers in Sumatra versus the foxes over here, and all that kind of really exciting stuff. So that's a bit of a quick rattle through what we do, but very keen in the future. I mean, I suppose we could do it all remotely, so it doesn't have to wait until after lockdown. If anyone would like to try and do some sort of Skype link up with Sumatra, or if you've got any pupils who are extremely keen on wildlife and orangutans and all that kind of thing, my job is engagement manager, and I like engaging with people of all ages, and I'm always really keen to discuss how we can better do that as a charity and sort of raise awareness of something that's really important. So do feel free to check out our school resources if you haven't done so already. Maybe I can put a link in the chat, Jeremy, if that's all right, so that you can access them. And I'm also very happy if Jeremy wants to circulate my email among people, then I'm really happy to hear from anyone who'd like to discuss more about orangutans and schools and anything else that I can help you with regarding sort of getting kids enthused about wildlife far away. That would be fantastic. And yeah, thank you very much for listening.
Okay. Thanks, Lucy. Well, the good news is that we're way ahead of time, so there's tons of time to ask Ian or Lucy any questions that you would like to about what they've said. Anybody like to chip in? Yeah, okay, Rebecca.
More a comment actually, more than anything. Lucy, we actually had, I think it was Rachel came in and gave a talk from SOS. We did some fundraising. You were our chosen charity, partly because I know Helen quite well, so it was a little bit swayed by that. But she was really good. And actually Zekra does the camera traps for the primary kids over at APS. And we could make links back to the Sumatran tigers that we saw on your trap to ours. So actually that did work really well, and it really did engage the kids.
Oh, I'm really glad to hear that. Thank you.
Excellent. Anybody else got any questions for Ian or Lucy? I think, Ian, what is the, I may have missed it because I was paying attention to other things, but what's the opening date for the centre?
There's a question. So we are almost certainly having to delay that at the moment because of the impacts of COVID. So a couple of the funders, capital funders behind us, like so many major funders, are rediverting their funds to other things. So the original opening date was going to be summer, so August-ish next year, 2021. That is now likely to be spring 2022, but we may be doing this is a really woolly answer, sorry, but we may be doing a phased opening depending quite on how things all play out over the next 6 months. So construction hasn't stopped on phase 1, that is still happening as we speak, and the construction team have actually been able to work the whole way through, but there are delays, unfortunately, but business as usual for everything else that we do.
Okay.
Can I ask a question? Have we got?
Yeah, no, go ahead, Kim.
Question for Ian. Ian, this looks really interesting. I've sort of been aware that this is happening for some time and interested to bring groups of students. I work with 16 to 18-year-olds primarily. Is that sort of age group, do you think, going to find that when they come that they're going to be as engaged as perhaps younger students would be?
Yeah, it's a totally valid question, Kim. And I have a feeling that there will be certain aspects that will be right for that age group in particular. So things like the market garden, when that is set up, in terms of horticulture and providing skills. One of the things that we don't have at Earth Trust, but which is on my to-do list, my radar, is what official qualifications and provision we can assist with there. So and/or my brain's gone dead, apprenticeships as well in particular. So looking into that side of things, there will definitely be. And the bit that doesn't happen yet, but I'm wanting to get started in line with this, is the same kind of opportunities on our farmland. So we have fully functioning farm and 7 tenants running various businesses, and the kind of opportunities that might exist there that don't for that age group, which I think is really key to providing those inroads into what careers might come out of this as well. So although they don't exist yet, that's definitely on the agenda.
That's really interesting. I've been looking at what Farm Ed have been doing.
Oh yeah.
Them and to see, but they're clearly focused on professional farmers. So there's no sort of space for teenagers in there. But I think it's fun. There isn't really, well, I haven't found opportunities for that age group to get into meaningful sort of land-based careers.
Yeah.
But I think there's a huge interest in them. So that sounds great.
Yeah, and a big need for it. So no, I'll take that one away and work on that one.
Yeah, I'd be interested to talk to you more about that.
Great, thank you.
Okay, any more questions? Otherwise, we'll see if Sylvia's ready. Are you ready, Sylvia?
Yes, I am. I hope this goes okay because I've lost the connection to you once already. So if you all stop moving again, I know I've lost you.
Rather second furthest person away, so we will forgive you.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll just introduce Sylvia, who's the Education Manager at the Royal Meteorological Society. And Sylvia's going to talk to us about transition resources, in particular for Year 6 to Year 7, but probably general resources anyway available from the Royal Met Soc on weather and climate. Over to you, Sylvia.
Yeah, so the Society supports the teaching of weather and climate at all levels through schools. And I guess historically, most of that has been to support geography teachers because that's where we find most of the weather and climate teaching. But we're finding that there's ever more call from students, from teachers, from academics, from parents, from everybody for more climate change education in schools now. And so we're currently engaged with a really exciting project to do more for science teachers. Jeremy's involved with it. And we're hoping to produce those resources over the course of the next few months. So it's something to watch out for. Now, let's see if this works. Hang on, pick the right website. Sorry, I've got too much open. I'm trying to find the right thing to share with you. There we go. So our website for schools is MetLink, and it has a lot of resources on it. It's not a great website. I've been trying to get a new website for years, and I might finally get one at some point this year. So it is a bit difficult to find what you're looking for at the moment, but I promise it will get better, and it will get better soon. But what I'm going to focus on now are these resources that we produced over the last 12 months or so, which were designed to be for that period of time after SATs in Year 6, when you want to do something a bit fun with your students to prepare them for learning at secondary school. And maybe sticking to the national curriculum isn't quite as important as it is at other times in the year. Now, of course, we have no idea what's going to happen with Year 6 now. We don't, there's still uncertainty about when anybody's going to go back into school and what they're going to be doing. But hopefully some of these activities are of interest either for this year or for next year. So I thought I'd just go through them. They're all designed on climate change. And it's basically 6 different resources looking at weather and climate. Yeah, so there's 6 resources. The difference between weather and climate is the first one, and that's a dice-based activity. So if instead of sharing that, I share a kind of So in reality, what you do is the students would be working in pairs with 2 dice, and they throw the dice and see what scores they get, tally up the scores, and end up with a sort of graph. Now, I can't do that with you now, but I have got a kind of online version of that. Assuming you do 1,000 throws, that's quite a lot. You'd see how the results grew up. And obviously you don't get all the numbers the same number of times, you get some more frequently than others. And the idea between that is that that's sort of a representation of our weather and climate. Climate is the weather that we expect. So the sort of numbers in the middle, the 6s, the 7s and the 8s, that's what you would expect if you just threw the 2 dice one more time. But what you actually got could be anything between a 2 and a 12. Similarly, if you're thinking about the temperature at the end of May, you'd expect a temperature maybe in the high teens, maybe in the low 20s down where you are, but the weather could be much warmer or it could be much colder. So it's just a nice simple way of looking at the difference between weather and climate. So that's one of the resources. If I go back to some of the others, another one is looking at do a kind of living graph of climate change. And for that, you just get a load of coloured lollipop sticks. And to prepare for the lesson, each lollipop stick represents a temperature in 1 year. They're ordered in colour by decade, so you choose a different colour lollipop stick for each decade, and on it you write the year and the temperature. And then you can use those sticks to do a wonderful graph showing you can either order it by time and see how time increases over the decade, how the temperature of the world increases over the decades and how the warmest years are most recently, or you can order it by temperature and see that the most recent years are the warmest ones. So it's just another fun activity. And then the other one I was going to tell you about is looking at risk, because that's something that's covered really poorly, definitely at primary, but all the way through secondary really as well. A lot of people leave school with a very poor understanding of risk. So this activity is looking at insurance, and people are assigned an industry, and they could be farmers or a music festival, or there's a whole load of categories that they can be. And then they're asked to think about the impact that bad weather might have on them as an industry. And then you throw a dice, and I'll throw it now. I've got a 4. Okay, and the 4 tells you there's a 4 in 6 chance of a bad weather event that's going to impact on your industry. And then the students then have to choose whether they're going to insure their industry or not. And insurance costs a different amount depending on what industry they are, so it's biased. And then I pick the 4 dice, which is this one, and you can maybe see that 4 of the sides on this one have been crossed out, and I throw that, and if as it does, it lands on a side with a cross on it, then that bad weather event happens. And if they're not insured, they then have to pay even more money, but if they're insured, they don't, and they basically got a set amount of money to start with, and by the end, it's basically who runs out of money first. So that's another one of the activities. And then there's some more active ones where they're running around playgrounds being greenhouse gases and things like that. So that, yeah. Any questions, or have I talked for long enough? I didn't even look at the clock, Jeremy, so I don't know whether I've got any longer.
Well within time, because we're running ahead. Has anybody got any questions right now for Sylvia about those activities?
Yeah, I have. They look really great. Are they on the website?
Yeah, so they're all on Metlink under the primary Key Stage 2 tab.
And the insurance one sounds like good for older kids. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Could be. I mean, all of those activities could be adapted for any age group, really. I mean, I really like, there's the greenhouse gas bulldog game. You might have difficulty persuading older students to do the running around, but I think it's in terms of understanding how greenhouse gases work, it's really accurate, which most of the demonstrations of greenhouse gases aren't. And I really like it.
Sounds good.
Okay. Any more questions? Okay. Well, for the secondary teachers as well, as Sylvia said, it's quite an exciting time because the Royal Met Soc and the Institute of Physics have joined together. I think the Royal Society of Chemistry, have they joined in as well?
Yeah, sort of.
Sort of, okay. There's some chemists listening, so be careful. But the learning societies are working together on producing some embedded sort of climate related activities for secondary science curriculum. And that's on its way. So, and as Sylvia said, she and myself are involved in looking at those. So we're quite excited to see how that project develops. So thank you very much, Sylvia. Holly, you're a bit early, but are you ready?
Yes, I think I'm ready. I hope I'm ready.
Okay. Right, okay. So this is Holly Irving, who is Science and Eco Coordinator at Caldecott Primary School in Abingdon. And I didn't even know until Holly rehearsed her talk with me the other day quite how much space there is outdoors at Caldecott, even though I've been there nearly every week for the last 4 or 5 years. There's amazing amount of space around there. So Holly's going to give us a little virtual tour of the spaces and how they use them. Over to you.
Thank you very much. So first of all, I'd just like to say that some of my videos started lagging terribly when I was playing them earlier. So I've swapped some of them for some photos, but there are still some videos. So I will try now and share with you our little slideshow. Okay, hopefully you can all see that.
No.
Oh no.
No.
Let me try again. And share. Try again.
Oh, there
How
it is.
about now?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Good.
Good. Okay. So let's see if we can do that. Yes, we can. Okay. So just a little bit of a tour. So originally this was a video. So I went first down to EYFS and nursery, which has been a bit of a focus of mine in the last couple of years, as they tended to be a bit of an island. They've worked really hard on streamlining their curriculum and making sure that outdoor areas are really inclusive. So we've got planting schemes, which lends itself really well, and exploration areas. We've also added new sort of physics play, interactive sort of gears and cogs and pouring things. The bottom left picture is a sensory trail. So all the plants are either very, very tactile or they smell beautiful. So the kids can walk around and sort of enjoy them. And that's been a really nice project that they've worked on. And then they have the mud kitchen as well, which is always fun. So. A new project that was done over this academic year was a willow weave, which the year 5 and 6s helped to design with local artists and have put up around what was once an amphitheatre, which went a bit derelict. So now we've got trails leading around a mound, and there's a lovely little boat that the children can go and sit in as well, which is just really engaging and a really lovely place to be outside. We're still waiting for it to start sprouting green, which it hasn't done yet, but hopefully soon it will start. Behind this is a rather large sports field as well, which has been key in filming lots of the wildlife that we've done for a project with the Abingdon Partnership and Tanisha Allen with the Royal Society. As it's got some fantastic access points, and we've caught lots of foxes and hedgehogs and other wildlife that the children as a whole school and as science groups have all engaged with. Okay, so this is our pond area, and this one is a video, so let's see if it works. Maybe, maybe not. Okay, so as I said, we had newts. Hooray! The children were so excited. And then we had no tadpoles. Oh no! And everything went away. So we had, yeah, they had great fun pond dipping and finding all the wildlife, and yeah, it was great. Now that was at the beginning of May, so during lockdown, we did the work on the pond. It's been brilliant. We've cleared out all the debris. We've got solar oxygenators. The children had some great extra maths lessons on working out the area of the pond to add dechlorinator, choosing the plants that were the right ones, native, right size for the pond, and then having a budget to go and order the plants for that, and then for the surroundings. So they've now put that into the business manager, and we have plants coming. So it's been really engaging for those children who I think at the moment need a lift. So yeah, that was really good. Okay. There we go. Okay, so again, this should have been a video, but it was lagging and horrible, so I've removed it. We have a really lovely long forest school, which our last head teacher worked on. We have an area called the Cage, which used to be a really big expanse surrounded by houses. And it was just mud and grass, and it was great for playing football and not much else. But with Abingdon Carbon Cutters and the Woodland Trust and other organisations, it's been made into this amazing space, which is now renamed the Meadow, which is nicer than the Cage. So there's lots of native hedgerows. We've got shelters with log stumps. In the bottom picture, it's not very clear, but in the middle, that's a fire pit. So we can go out there and have fires. There's loads of logs and building materials. There's little mazes out of hazel, and it's fab. It's used by year 1 and foundation and nursery every single week, and anyone can go there anytime. And in the summer, well, most of the year, it is just used for children to go and sit in at playtimes and break times. So it's great. And this is the rest of the meadow. So you can see on the left-hand picture is the hedgerow that was planted, and lots of fruit trees as well, so the kids go and pick the fruit. And then on the other side, you've got still the grass for football. You know, you can't have not football. But at the end, we've got birch, and we've got cherry, and we've got hazel, and there's lots of wildflowers and things down there that the children can go and explore. And these are ongoing projects that are run by myself and some other colleagues in trying to provide better wildlife areas. So there's still lots for us to do here. Access points was a big one that came up in the wildlife project. Homes for wildlife has been something that the children have really pushed for and got behind. So yeah, it's a lot of work and a lot of love, but it's really great. I really like working here. And yeah, so here's some of the bits at the end, little mounds and some birch. And the grass is grown, so there's a mowed maze, and then the rest of it's grown for the rest of the year. So it's had its trim, which is a bit late in the year, but it will now grow for the rest of the year and let the children run their projects. So this is it being used in lockdown. So taking science and learning outside is just brilliant, and because we've got all this space, we can. So we did a great lesson on forces, and we then let them bring their bikes in, which then prompted conversations into gears. You can see the little chap at the front's got no gears on a BMX, and the guy at the back is having a great time going really fast. So we had a really lovely learning, and we've had just hundreds and hundreds of bug hunts, and I've had to learn a lot of new creatures as well that they found. That it's been good. And then we've got, here we go, plant identification missions, which was often sidetracked by our fluffy cat friend who kept visiting. There are loads of cats who keep just turning up and enjoying the science. During the lunch times, the children went and rediscovered the lost fire pit, which had been buried by mud and dirt. And over about 4 lunch times, we cleared it all out, socially distanced, obviously. And they then managed to do some cooking. So we did some lovely cooking, and we did some sneaky science. I know a lot of the new framework wants lessons to be clearly defined. So this is a maths lesson, this is an English lesson, this is a science lesson. But I think sneaky science is just brilliant because it makes so many links into the day-to-day experiences that they have, where they can make observations and question and ask things. So yeah, it was a really lovely week. There you go, science is delicious. We also received some free planting materials from, I think it was Waitrose or John Lewis, and the children have done the raised beds. Normally by now they're full of things that are growing and eating, and it's great, but due to everything changing this year, it's been a bit of a late start. These areas and spaces have created so much joy and peace for the pupils that have been here during this particular time in education, and it's something that all children need in their life, is to be outside and learning as much as possible. So yeah, thank you. That's kind of me done. So if you have any questions, then please ask.
Thank you very much, Polly. It's making me quite almost, it's weird, like homesickness, but not, because my home is here in Portsmouth, but I spend a lot of time at Caldecott School, and I know a lot of the children that I've worked with over the last 5 years, and been to that area, the meadow, quite a lot when we do our Crest Star Science Investigator activities, and it really is a great space, and it's been really, really nice to use it for the Wildlife Camera project that, as Holly said, we've been doing with the Royal Society Partnership Grant. And I was engaged only this morning in some very exciting discussions for ongoing projects linked to that, which there's a couple of other schools represented here as well. Ruth at Sunningwell, Ali, if she's back from her avocado delivery at Dunmore, and the Abingdon Prep School, where we're putting these wildlife camera traps out to try and monitor wildlife on school grounds. But this might actually grow into something even bigger if what I was discussing this morning comes to fruition, and might be linked into, as Holly said, this impact on the well-being of children, and working with university psychology departments as well as wildlife researchers to look at actually measuring and monitoring the beneficial impacts. That would be amazing. So has anybody got any questions for Holly? It's all gone quiet. I think everybody's gone away. I better check my participant list.
Can I ask a quick one, if that's allowed? Sorry, I know I'm not from the school.
Yeah.
But I'm just kind of fascinated. So I said earlier on, I worked for a school food program that involved growing outdoors, visiting farms, etc., for 10 years. And my question, I guess, is to everyone else, is how much you're all able to replicate the same kind of interactions or stuff for children if you don't have that amount of space.
Yeah. Anybody from any of the other schools? Ruth, you've got a fair bit of space. Do you do any food growing up at Sunningwell?
Yeah, so we have done some food growing, but we've had it's dependent upon sort of staff commitment that we found, and we've had quite a lot of staff turnover change. So actually, when I was in school a few weeks ago, looking after the key worker children, we actually just gutted our veg patches to sort of start anew. So at the moment, there's nothing there, but we're hoping that we can have some stuff put in next. We were just looking at it, it was just all overgrown. We had some very large fennel plants that were hard to get rid of. But we're hoping in the future too, we've got some new planters coming in, but it is very dependent upon staff and commitment and staff staying there and sticking to it.
I agree that that's a really big problem, I think, with all science, but with any project, because a lot of them are long term and you do need to keep them running, and with the best will in the world you can't run every project even if you really wanted to, so you need other people to pick it up. So yeah, we've had similar things this year, which is why it's so late. Yeah,
I think that's one of the things that I noticed going around all the schools in Abingdon, is that on the whole they're fairly well resourced with outdoor space. If I think like Jane at Thomas Reed and I can't remember which other, and Dunmore has got a massive outdoor area. It's actually quite good when you hear about schools selling off land and all that kind of thing. Outdoor spaces are pretty good on the whole, I think.
I think Carswell is the only one that's got a smaller amount of space outside.
Yeah. Okay. And what about links of food growing to science? Is that a kind of beneficial area? Is something as this is meant to be a science coordinators meeting, not just growing food for the sake of it, but are there science activities that anybody suggests that come into the food growing aspect?
So, I mean, it links in. I did it with my Key Stage 1 class just before we went into lockdown. We, you know, what do plants need to grow? So we grew runner beans. So that's a really good thing, sort of looking at the science of it, but then putting a practical aspect to it as well. And similar, linking, Holly, with what you just said, putting it into that everyday use of what science are we doing on an everyday basis without even thinking about it. So yeah, that's thinking from a Key Stage 1 perspective and linking it to the science curriculum.
Yeah, sneaky science, I like that. Anybody else got any questions for any of the speakers? If anything's just suddenly occurred to you. Or any comments that anybody wants to make? Doesn't look like it. So, if not, then I suggest we can make a slightly early finish, which I'm sure we'll all be grateful for with lovely weather outside. I'm so sorry that I cannot provide any refreshments on this occasion, as we usually do when everybody comes to the Science Centre. But I hope you've all got your own suitable refreshments that you can take outside with you now, enter into the spirit of the outdoor learning experience, and go and have a cup of tea or something else outside. I'd like to say thank you very much to all the speakers. And as I said, I do think that probably there are some advantages to having remote meetings, in that people like Sylvia can join us from Stockport, and Sean from Blackburn, and Nikki from down in Portsmouth, and myself. So yeah, it's been a really interesting set of talks, all really good, with literally food for thought. So I hope that next time, maybe in our next Abingdon Partnership School Science Coordinators meeting, we might be meeting in person. And if you're looking at the slide at the start, what I've suggested is that that might be a good meeting at which to reflect on this experience and see what we've learnt, see what issues we may need to be addressing at that stage in terms of any catch-up or things that children haven't been taught, or any great ideas that have come out, such as some of the ones that Holly's shown us, as where lockdown and working with small groups of children has opened up new opportunities. So I'm going to say that I look forward to seeing as many of you as possible in person, but if not, I think we've got the Zoom nailed, so we'll do it that way next time as well. So it's great to see lots of familiar faces that I'm missing, and we'll see you all again at the next meeting. Thanks for coming.
Thank you. Thank you.